Hey, welcome to the show. I'm Yossi Goslin, NBA salary cap analyst, and this salary cast is on the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm going to do a mock off season on them, in which I'm going to break down some hypothetical moves and show how they could accomplish their goals within all the salary cap rules. Make sure you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky. My name, Yossi Goslin. Now is the best time of year to be following me. Even have me on notifications as moves happen. I'm going to have a lot of good cap analysis on them. Make sure to subscribe to me on YouTube, Spotify, Apple for all the previous content, and check out all the other previous work I did. And my newsletter, Third Apron. I've got already a Sixers offseason analysis in Third Apron, and I've got a podcast where I discuss them as well on the channel. So make sure you check those. I put the link in the description, and I am gonna I'm mainly gonna explore in this one how Sixers trading down from 3 to a little later in the lottery because I think they need to save a little bit of money. And I'm going to explore how that works. Also look at some of their top free agents, mainly Quentin Grimes, what a contract might look like. I know some of you might be thinking, why don't you just make a video of the Sixers blowing it up? That'd be more fun. And their future's pretty bleak anyways, but I don't think the Sixers are going to do that. I'd be stunned if they blow it up this summer. I think they're going to run it back. And I'm just going to assume that they're going to keep the core together and just make some incremental moves to improve the team. So let's get to it. So let's take a look at the Sixers payroll first and see where they're at according to the tax apron, all that good stuff. So right now they're right up against the luxury tax line, and they're about pretty close to the first apron and a good amount below the second apron. And they're already at a pretty almost full roster, 13 players. The biggest question heading into the season was whether they're going to keep their pick. They were projected to get the 5th pick, and not only did they keep it, they ended up going up to 3. So they're going to owe a pick next year to Oklahoma City instead. But the number 3 pick, much higher salary than the number 5 pick. So their payroll went up. And the thing is, they're going to need to save a little bit of money because since they're so close to the first apron, they're already slightly above the tax. My feeling is that they're going to be willing to pay some tax. They have avoided it the past 3 years, but they always started above it and got below it later if needed, if they were reasonably close within. So when I do the mock off season here, I'm going to have them go above the tax, go above the first apron, but stay like a good amount below the second apron, reasonably enough where they could get below the tax later if needed. Especially because Quentin Grimes, he's going to command a pretty big salary. I'll get into shortly what that might be. Also, Gershon Yabusele, their other main free agent, he's going to want a pay raise as well. Now, how are the Sixers going to save money? And before I get into anything, I just want to preface this that I don't think there is a Paul George trade realistically out there. I've seen some proposals out there, stuff like Paul George in 3 to Utah for Lauri Markkanen in 5. Yeah, the Sixers would absolutely love to do something like that. Doesn't make any sense for the Jazz. The Jazz would probably need a lot more for taking on the last 3 years of Paul George's deal. Maybe they need some future picks from the Sixers. And if you're the Sixers, you got all this uncertainty with Embiid. We don't know how good Paul George is going to be. Like, why trade future picks just to get off that salary? So, yeah, the contract's not looking good right now. But I just don't think it makes any sense for the Sixers right now to give up assets, lose the value proposition to get off this contract. So how are the Sixers going to save money then? Because all their money is, for the most part, tied up with their top 3 guys and the number 3 pick. So that's why they're going to trade down in this mock off season. I'm going to have them downgrade from 3 to a lower selection, and in the process, have them save some money, probably have them dump Andre Drummond. And as far as the other minimum players, I'll get into what the Sixers might do, what decisions they might make on those guys a little later. And just really quickly, here are their exceptions. They are probably going to have the tax pyramid level, assuming that they go over the first apron, which I think they're going to do, which then means they're not going to have access to these trade exceptions. Teams that are over the first apron cannot use exceptions generated in previous seasons. So let's take a look at Quentin Grimes' market and see what he could command in free agency. So before he got to the Sixers, I always felt he was like a slightly sub below mid-level exception level guy from his time with the Knicks, and I think his time with the Mavs really validated that. And then he exceeded a lot of expectations when he joined the Sixers, and now it's kind of all over the place what he might command. I've seen some projections put him as like a $20 million a year range guy. I could be wrong, but I'm just not there at all. I'm not sure how much to take away from what he did with the Sixers. He got a really high usage, really great opportunity with all the injuries in Philadelphia, and he really thrived in that situation. And I think that was what the Sixers want from him. They want him to be a great fourth or fifth option once the team is fully healthy, which I think is probably what he's best suited for. The other thing, though, is that he's restricted. He's a restricted free agent. Restricted free agency is always really has a lot of limitations towards what you can get because teams, the Sixers have the right to match an offer, and so teams might be dissuaded from even making one. But also, there's really no cap space out there. It's just the Nets. They're the only team that can offer more than mid-level exception, which starts at $14.1 million. If you're the Nets, do you want to make a big offer to see if the Sixers sweat? Where does Quentin Grimes really fit early on in this rebuild? So I'm not sure the offers are really going to be out there for him, in which case something I could see his situation playing out is the Sixers giving him a deal slightly above what other teams could offer. Most teams have the full mid-level exception that starts at $14 million, could go up to 4 years, $61 million. So here's a little projection I made where it's the first year salary starts like a little bit above it, roughly $1 million above it. And he has a fifth year. So with the maximum raises he can get, tops out at 5 for 90. So he gets an additional year than from the Sixers, which they can offer, and other teams can't. If he gets substantially more from the Nets or something, then they might want to just consider signing, trading him, see if there's another team out there willing to give him a little something, give up a little more than what they originally traded to get for him. And then in that case, they still have their draft pick. It's a very guard-heavy draft at the top of the lottery. Good chance they could replace him there. And as for Gershon Yabusele, the Sixers are kind of limited in terms of what they can offer. So there's a couple ways they can go about it. The first, since they're over the first apron, they could at the most offer him the taxpayer mid-level exception, which starts at $5.7 million, could go up to 2 years, tops out at $11.6 million. Alternatively, the most they can give him through the limited rights they have is a 120% raise off his minimum salary for this year, which is roughly $2.85 million. So I don't know exactly what the market is. I like with Grimes, a lot of people are higher on him than what I think the market might be on Yabusele. My feeling is one of these two should work. If I'm going to assume on the highest end, he was probably going to require the taxpayer mid-level. I could see some teams willing to get to that range to steal him away from the Sixers. And in either case, probably gets a player option on the second year, so he can potentially decline it. And then he gets early bird rights, and then the Sixers can potentially resign him to more money if he makes another improvement. I could be wrong, unless a lot of teams out there view him as like the next PJ Tucker and are willing to go like give him close to the full mid-level amount or even the whole thing. I get the feeling the Sixers shouldn't have such a hard time keeping him. And I want to take a look at the Sixers draft pick situation really quickly, just to explain why I don't expect them to trade any future picks or like consolidate any to improve the team right now. And it's mostly because of the uncertainty to Embiid. I would be surprised if they moved any future draft equity unless they're getting a young superstar, and I just don't see one coming their way. So here's what they've got going on. They've got the third overall pick. They owe that 2026 pick to the Thunder, and they owe a 2028 first to the Nets. That's top 8 protected. But in place of that, they have an unprotected first from the Clippers coming their way from the James Harden trade. So at the most, they can trade up to 3 first if they wanted to do that. But as you can see, it's not a lot of, they don't really have any extra first round picks. They're pretty neutral right now. I mean, if anything, they're down 2 because they're going to owe those 26 and 28s. So because of this deficit and because of the uncertainty to Embiid and how good can they be for how much longer, I could see them actually looking to add more future first round picks to their arsenal. And that can be, I think, could be done by trading the third overall pick, trading down with some of the teams that are picking slightly below them. Feels like the draft begins at 3, but it really gets wide open starting there. So the Sixers would probably only consider moving down if there's someone they really like in that 5 through 9 range, which I think is definitely possible. And obviously right now, still early. It's only May 20th. We're a month away from the draft, so they don't even know the answer to that quite yet. But maybe in a month from now, they'll know. So let's get into some scenarios. So I'm going to show 3 different trades. This assumes that there is a bidding war brewing among the teams picking right below the Sixers to move up to the top 3. All these teams, they had among the worst records in the league and all fell several spots out of the lottery. So first I'm going to start with the Jazz. This is a team I could see wanting to get a little higher, a lot of extra picks, a lot of ways they can go about this. Simplest could be just attaching one additional first. They have the 21st overall pick in this draft. That's something, if you're just moving 2 spots, that's something I could see the Sixers being okay with. They could also add a future first round pick. They have extra first round picks in all the odd numbered years. Also, I like the idea of Taylor Hendricks on the Sixers. I don't think the Jazz would do that, but I feel like the actualized version of Hendricks would be a really nice fit on the Sixers. So that's just another way maybe the Sixers would consider moving down 2 spots. So I just put this framework pretty simple, just attach a 21, and the Jazz are taking back Drummond. They've got a trade exception to make it work. However, this deal only saves about $3.5 million. So let's see if the Sixers could do a little better than this. Also, should be noted that when teams are trading draft picks, particularly picks in the upcoming draft, there is no salary matching required. Only the players in the trade, there has to be a mechanism for the team to acquire them. So since the Jazz have a trade exception, right now they're not sending back any players, they could take back Drummond. So here's another version, pretty much the same deal, slight variation involving the Wizards. So the Sixers go down to 6, they go down 3 spots, but instead of getting that 21, they get a slightly better pick in the middle of the first round with 18. The Wizards also have several future firsts under their disposal. So I just put the same exact type of trade I did with the previous one. And at this point, we're kind of at the point where these deals are so similar that if there is a bidding war starting to happen, then okay, maybe these teams have to throw in a little extra something, maybe a future first round pick. I don't know. But Sixers don't save that much more money than the previous one, only $3.9 million. So let's get to the one I consider my favorite framework. So this one involves the Brooklyn Nets. They fell down considerably bad in the lottery, and they have the widest gap out of all the teams mentioned between 3 and 8. So if the Nets or any of these teams, they are in on one of the top guys, probably Ace Bailey at 3 as of now, and they just want to bet on pure upside, and they don't feel as good for any of the guys they have in their range, then this is a type of framework I could see getting it done for the Sixers. So here they save a lot more money than in the other 2 deals by getting off Drummond as well. You're going from that $11 million salary for number 3 to $7 million for 8, and a very small salary for that 26 pick. You're saving $6.3 million. And I have them getting back their own first round pick in 2028. This is one of the picks that the Sixers originally gave to the Nets to get James Harden 3 years ago now that was. By getting their own pick back in a couple of years, that opens up the possibility of potentially entering a rebuild if things really go bad, or you start to free up the ability to trade even more picks if there is some young superstar trade opportunity that comes in the future. So let's take a look at the final roster I put together. I went with the Nets trade, which I said was my favorite out of the 3. First, let's look at the contracts that I put out for Quentin Grimes and Gershon Yabule. I gave the same starting salaries that I laid out earlier in the video, and they've got a full 15-man roster now. I had Kelly Oubre picking up his player option. There is some reporting that all the guys with player options might do that, except I had Eric Gordon decline his. The reason for that is because his it's like a $3.4 million player option. If he declines it and signs a minimum salary with just about anybody, he'll get more money because the salary cap rose. So I've got him leaving there. There's a very crowded guard rotation there. Very good chance that's who they even get with the 8th pick if that's the best player available. And I did the same thing with Lonnie Walker with his team option. It was like almost $3 million. I have Sixers declining it. They re-sign him to the vet minimum. So it's at $2.3 million, but he's actually making more than that. But on the Sixers end, it only counts as that. So it's a win-win on both sides. And I've got just about everybody else coming back. I've got them with that extra pick from that trade, and they have a early second round pick, which would probably have a salary around here, like the minimum salary for a player with 1 year of service. And this all leaves them, they have like a $20 million tax payment. But as far as the aprons are concerned, they're a little bit over the first apron and $6.3 million below the second apron. This is the same exact proximity that they were below the second apron after they did all their moves last year, after signing Paul George to the max and giving KJ Martin that contract that put him well into the tax and first apron. So they're in a similar type of territory where if things don't work out and they want to duck the tax later, they can do that with a couple moves. If they can do that with like a Kelly Oubre and let's just dump Kelly Oubre and Gershon Yabusele, assuming they're on 1 year deals. Boom, you duck the tax. Might want to dump one more guy just for safe measure because this is all done at the trade deadline. Still got to be able to fill up the roster later. It's been a really long time since we've seen teams at the top of the lottery trade their selections in the draft, trade down. But if there's any draft that might happen in, I feel pretty good about this one, especially after the chaotic lottery that we just had. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think that the Sixers are getting enough for trading down? Or maybe these teams are giving up a little too much to make it up to the third overall pick and what seems to be like a more wide open territory there? Are there any other types of trades you'd like to see the Sixers pursue if they were going to trade down? Let me know. And yeah, like I said earlier, make sure you're following me on everything listed in the overlays: Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to Third Apron. We're having a sale there right now. And check out the link in the description about Sports Business Classroom. I'm going to be an instructor there, and I have a promo code if you want to join.